Hey everyone! ChatGPT Taylor aka Taylor here. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is not exactly new, but it's new for this season. With only 7 campers remaining in Season 4 of Disventure Camp, I feel like this is a good time to talk about what each of the remaining campers would need to do to win this season. Some campers have better chances of winning the show compared to others, but I do think that there's a way for each camper to make their way to the end. I did a similar video last season where I talked about what each member of the final 10 needed to do in order to win, so I suppose doing one for this season is sensible. I'd like to give a quick shout out to Sniffy the lovable cookie for reminding me about this concept, because I definitely wanted to make one for this season, but I completely forgot about it. So in this video, I will be going over each of the remaining campers, as well as 5 steps that I think they need to follow in order for them to win the show. And with that, let's get started. Before I begin, make sure to like and subscribe if this video is to your liking, and make sure to comment down below if there's anything that you would like to see going forward. To kick this off, let's start with our new antagonist for the season, Isabel. Isabel certainly had fun making a flashy move at the last elimination trial. But the first step for Isabel to follow on her road to victory will directly conflict with her latest move. Step 1. Rein in the fun. I get that Isabel's decision to force a tie between Marisa and Anastasia was more motivated by a desire to have fun rather than a desire to make the best strategic move. The way I see it, if Isabel wanted to make the best strategic move, she would have just voted out Anastasia outright instead of giving her a chance to fight for her survival. But now that Isabel has had her fun, she needs to rein it in a little bit. Based on the reaction of her fellow competitors during the last ceremony, it seems like this move may have turned most of them against her. And while I don't think the damage is permanent, if Isabel doesn't rein it in and show everyone that she's capable of making decisions based on optimal moves, she's going to turn more people against her, which will make it harder for her to make it to the end. The key point is that Isabel can't afford to have more people turning against her, which leads me to my next point. Step 2. Maintain Jade's loyalty. As it stands, even though Jade is Isabel's closest ally, even Jade is wary of Isabel's decision-making and how it can impact both of their games. This isn't good for Isabel, since she really needs Jade's loyalty in order to remain in the game. Not just for the numbers, but also because Jade still has her steal a vote advantage, which could come in handy with such a low number of campers remaining. So considering everyone's current opinion of Isabel, she really needs to reel in Jade and make sure that she's still willing to stick with her. And personally, I'd prefer it if she didn't try and intimidate Jade into sticking with her, because intimidation can only get you so far. There are other ways to get people to keep you here. Which leads into my next point. Step 3. Capitalize on necessity. From my experience with these kinds of shows, the best way to stick around is to convince people that they need you in the game for their own safety. So if Isabel can charm her way into making people want to keep her around, the next best thing is for her to make it seem like other people can use her as a number in order for them to accomplish their goals. For example, Logan currently has the reputation of a flipper. And with Zaid getting tired of his antics from the previous challenge, on top of his already existing distrust of Anastasia, Logan's options for solid allies are quickly dwindling. If Isabel can deduce this and offer Logan an alliance, Logan might end up taking it, knowing that he doesn't have many options left, and that an alliance with Isabel could help Logan take out the people who he finds threatening, like Anastasia.
But the
That
devil
being
on my
said,
shoulder
Isabel might
keeps
want to have
whispering,
different targets
"Hey,
in mind.
give 3."
Which leads me to step 4. Weaponize conflict with Anastasia. It's clear by now that Anastasia and Isabel have animosity between them, and that it's logical to assume that the two of them will try to vote each other out at the first opportunity. That being said, if Isabel is in a position where she can't eliminate Anastasia, such as if Anastasia wins immunity, Isabel could use this conflict to her advantage. She could tell people, "Hey, as long as I'm here, Anastasia will go after me instead of you. So you should keep me here." This would give Isabel a bit more utility as a player, since keeping her in the game would keep Anastasia's sights away from everyone else. This argument could appeal to someone like Logan, as I mentioned previously, but possibly to someone like Amelie, who might think that taking out Anastasia could make Hannah stay loyal to her. This is just a step that Isabel could do to turn a negative into a positive. This could be the move that gets her to the finale. But if that happens, she needs to take care of one thing. Step 5. Pick finale opponent properly. As of now, I think it's reasonable to say that the finale will more than likely be a challenge. And if this is the case, Isabel needs to make sure that she picks her opponent carefully. Granted, Isabel has shown her moments of strength, such as when she was one of the last 2 campers standing in the carousel challenge. That being said, Isabel would benefit from not having to face off against people who are overwhelmingly stronger than her. I'd advise against taking Logan to the end, since he's an Olympian, and very likely has general athleticism despite his current aversion to water. I'd also advise against taking Jade, since her intelligence could give her the advantage in puzzles. Personally, I'd advise taking someone like Hannah, because she was the first one to be eliminated in the episode 17 strength challenge, and I don't think she's shown any significant ability to do puzzles. The one advantage that Hannah might have is speed, but if Isabel can get past that, we could be watching Isabel taking home the victory at the end of the season, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people who would be happy with that. Following Isabel, let's talk about her closest ally, Jade. Jade's perception in the community has wavered a bit over the course of the season. I remember people saying at the start of the season that Jade was a bland strategist. But right now, I see people praising Jade for her emotional depth and strategic game, and I could realistically see Jade winning it all if she plays her cards right. But in order for that to happen, Jade needs to do a few things. Step 1. Be careful with Isabel. Even though Jade and Isabel have been allies for a long time, Jade is slowly starting to get wary of Isabel's actions. This became prominent in episode 19, where Jade tried to dissuade Isabel from causing a tie vote, saying that it was unnecessarily cruel and that people may not want to work with them after it. Isabel disregarded Jade's concerns, which scared Jade, and I think Jade had the right to be scared. Instead of a safer move that could have accomplished their goal, Isabel pushed for a flashy and dangerous move that risked putting a larger target on both her back and Jade's back. So going forward, Jade needs to be careful about how she treats her alliance with Isabel. It's okay for now since I don't think Isabel will want to take out Jade yet, but if Isabel becomes more of a liability, Jade needs to be prepared to cut her off and jump ship towards some better allies. Which leads me to my next point. Step 2. Shore up alliance with Logan. In episode 19, Logan seemed open to working with Jade. So, I think it's worth it for Jade to consider working closely with Logan. Now, I know Jade technically leaked Logan's information about the vote to Isabel, and I know that Logan hasn't shown himself to be very reliable. That being said, with Logan seemingly wanting to separate from Anastasia, and with Zaid getting more and more tired of Logan's flip-floppy nature, Logan might not have a choice but to align with someone who actively seeks him out. So, I think if Jade approaches Logan for a long-term deal, it could work out well for both of them, especially if Isabel goes off the rails with her plans. And there are some realistic plans that would allow Jade and Logan to work together, which leads me into my next point. Step 3. Correctly use advantage. As we all know, Jade still has her steal a vote advantage from the auction, which allows her to prevent one camper from voting at an elimination trial, and she can cast a second vote in their place. This advantage can really change the tides of the season if it's used correctly. So Jade needs to exercise caution to make sure that she not only uses it to stay in the game, but to also put her in a more advantageous position. And I have a little prediction for what I think could happen with Jade's advantage. Heading into the final 7, it could very easily be Jade and Isabel on the outside, facing a coalition of Anastasia, Zaid, Amelie, and Hannah. Logan would be in the middle, as usual. Let's say Anastasia wins immunity, forcing Jade and Isabel to target someone else. For the elimination trial, the coalition of 4 would target Isabel, maintaining their opinion of her from the recent trial. But, Jade would steal Anastasia's vote, allowing her to use her 2 votes and Isabel's vote to put 3 votes against a member of the coalition, likely Hannah because of her previous resistance to work with Jade and Isabel. This leaves Logan in the middle, and if Jade shores up an alliance with Logan based on their recent interactions, Logan casts the deciding vote to send Hannah home by a vote of 4-3. Not only does this keep Jade and Isabel safe, but Logan will receive most of Anastasia and Zaid's wrath because he flipped again, and with Hannah gone, Amelie might be willing to switch sides and work with Jade and Isabel, allowing them to have a majority heading into the final 6. This is just one way that Jade could prolong her stay in the game, and there are other things she can do, such as the next point on this list. Step 4. Consider using shields. Even though Jade isn't the most disruptive person in camp, she's still a candidate to be targeted, evidenced by episode 18 where she received 3 votes due to her having her steal a vote advantage. So, Jade would benefit from making moves to try and take the focus off of her. And one way to do that is to keep campers in the game who are more threatening than Jade, thereby using them as shields that can take the hit for Jade when she needs them to. And right now, I'd say the top 2 candidates are Isabel and Anastasia. As long as they're in the game, they'll probably be going after each other, and people will likely try to pick sides, which will keep Jade out of the spotlight for a little while. And even someone like Logan can be used as a shield, considering how many people he's upset by flipping. So, using other campers as shields is a realistic possibility for Jade, and I could see her doing this in the season. That being said, I think the number 1 thing that Jade should do is in this final step. Step 5. Remain calm and logical. I know that in these kinds of shows, drama reigns supreme. But at the same time, with all the drama in this season, having someone like Jade who is a little more level-headed and logical allows for room for people to make reasonable strategic moves despite the drama. While Isabel tries to dunk on Anastasia and Logan continues flipping, people like Amelie and Zaid could view Jade as a worthy person to work with, considering that she's not as overly dramatic compared to the rest of the cast, and thus, is somewhat more reasonable to work with as an ally. So, I think Jade playing the role of the logical camper in the game could make others view her as a stronger ally, and give her the necessary coverage that she needs to weed through the drama and slide to the finale. And if she can get to the finale, she has a chance at winning it all. And I don't think her winning is the absolute worst thing in the world. That being said, I can't say the same for the next camper on this list, which is Logan. Now, I know from my previous video that there are people in the community who absolutely adore Logan and will defend him to the ends of the earth. Now, you're allowed to have your opinion and I'm not going to try to change anyone's minds. But at the same time, we can't deny that Logan's actions during the game have made people distrust him, and that's only hurting his chances of winning the season. So if he wants to take it all, he needs to take a few steps. Step 1. Realize how you're perceived. Whether it's warranted or not, many of the other campers view Logan as being a flip-flopper who is potentially unreliable as an ally. And regardless of whether or not Logan has a valid justification for his flipping, that doesn't change the fact that people are starting to get annoyed with Logan for his indecisiveness. So, if Logan wants to start curving this perception of him, he needs to realize how his actions have affected other people in the game, and that even if he's right for prioritizing his own well-being, that doesn't mean that other people will accept that and keep him in the game based on principle. It's a cutthroat game and Logan might have to do things that earn him some ire. Such as the next step on this list. Step 2. Pick a side. It's simple, but it's necessary. After all the flipping that Logan has done in this game, he needs to just pick a side and stick with it. With so few people left in the game, it shouldn't be that hard for Logan to figure out who he wants to ride with and prove that he's done flipping. After all, he's made it clear that he doesn't trust Anastasia, it seems like he may not trust Isabel, and it's possible that he's realized that Zaid might be fed up with him too. So, by process of elimination it shouldn't be too hard to figure out who he wants to align with and then stick with them for the rest of the game. It'll be a big moment if this happens, especially since this decision will probably make some people unhappy with him. Which leads me to the next step. Step 3. Don't fold to the pressure. If Logan officially chooses a side and sticks with it, there's going to be some pushback from the people he didn't side with. For example, if Logan sides with Jade and Isabel like I mentioned back in Jade's section, he's going to upset Anastasia, Zaid, Hannah, and Amelie for flipping once again. But this time, Logan needs to stand up for himself and stick with the people he chose to stay with, despite what other people say to him. In the past, whenever Logan flipped, Logan was quick to try and make amends, even if it included making promises that he might not have been able to keep. So this time, once Logan commits to one side, he needs to just weather the storm and stand his ground in order to stop flipping, even though his mind might tempt him into making false promises just to calm others down. Which leads into my next step. Step 4. Don't make too many promises. For as much flack as I've given Logan over the season for his constant flipping and upsetting of others, I don't get the impression that he's doing most of it out of malice. Even though he's done stuff like letting Anastasia get captured by the robot, I attribute less of that to malice and more to stupidity, since it seemed like he genuinely believed that Anastasia wouldn't get hurt, even though she was just picked up by a giant robot and carried into the air. I do think that he wants to try and keep his relationships intact, which is what leads him to potentially say things that can get him in trouble. Such as when he promised Spencer that he'd stick with him after Linda's first elimination, despite the fact that Logan had a deal with everyone on his team by that point. So as much as it might hurt, Logan needs to realize that he can't continue making promises that he knows he can't keep, as it's only going to hurt more people in the long run and put an even bigger target on his back. And he can't afford to have a bigger target on his back, which is related to my final point for Logan. Step 5. Lean into your physicality. Let's not forget that despite his faults, Logan is an Olympic-level athlete that has shown his ability to win physical competitions. Yes, he's still going through some trauma with water, but he's still physical nonetheless. And I think Logan is in a position where if he really wanted to, he could try to brute force his way to the end by winning immunity challenges. Sure, he might not succeed, considering how the next challenge seems to be both mental and physical. But at the same time, I doubt that no one in the competition views Logan as an easy person to beat in a physical challenge, so Logan might need to try and win his way to the end via immunity, especially with the amount of enemies that he currently has. And who knows, maybe his physicality will be the deciding factor in getting him to the finale and winning the season. I know that some people would be happy with this ending, but for me, I think there needs to be something more done in order for Logan to win in a more deserving manner. And I could say similar things about the next camper on this list. Up next, it's Logan's arguably closest ally, Zaid. While Zaid had a pretty big focus in the first half of the season thanks to his relationship with Ivy, I feel like I've seen a lot of people in the community say that Zaid hasn't really done anything of significance during the most recent episodes. So, not only does Zaid need to make moves to position himself better in this game, he also needs to make moves to become relevant again. And it all starts with the first step. Step 1. Take initiative. Lately, Zaid has kind of been letting people come to him with the plans for the elimination trials. Notably, Natalia approached Zaid with the plan to target Anastasia in episode 17, Spencer approached Zaid with the plan to target Jade in episode 18, and Anastasia approached Zaid with the plan to target Isabel in episode 19. With so little time left in the season, if Zaid wants to make a name for himself, he needs to take initiative and start approaching other people with plans to eliminate the others. If he can take his game into his own hands and start recruiting people for his own plans, I think that will help increase his notability in this game. And to help do this, he can start with this next step. Step 2. Align with Anastasia. Now, Zaid hasn't exactly been the most fond of Anastasia's game as of lately, and he's voiced this himself. But at the same time, with Marisa out of the game, Anastasia will almost certainly search for another close ally. And if I remember correctly, Zaid and Anastasia originally began their alliance over the mutual bond of losing their lover in the game. So since Marisa was just voted out, I could see Zaid and Anastasia reconnecting again and becoming each other's new closest ally. And I think Zaid could really benefit from this, considering how his alliance with Logan is going. Which leads me into my next point. Step 3. Tread lightly with Logan. Lately, it's become clear that Zaid is becoming fed up with Logan's decision-making. Most notably, Zaid was visibly upset when Logan refused to help Anastasia in the episode 19 challenge when they previously agreed to work with her. And if I were Zaid, I would start questioning whether or not it's worth it to stick with Logan. If Logan wants to stick with Zaid, then I guess it's fine to keep him around. But if Zaid manages to become Anastasia's #1 ally, then I think it's worth it for him to consider dumping Logan. Because with Logan's reputation, he could very easily be the reason why Zaid gets screwed out of winning the season. But for now, Zaid still has a chance at getting new allies and making it far, and this next step could help him get there. Step 4. Maintain reasonability. For as little as Zaid has done in recent episodes, he's shown himself to be pretty reasonable. As of lately, he seems to be more inclined to do logical actions regardless if his allies want to do the opposite. The most memorable instance of this is when Zaid elected to leave Logan and stick with Marisa during the challenge, knowing that Logan was wrong for abandoning Anastasia after agreeing to work with her. In my opinion, this showing of reasonability will make Zaid a more enticing person to work with as an ally. So, if Zaid can keep being reasonable, he might find himself with people who are willing to work with him due to his reasonability. And if this happens, this might give him enough time to accomplish the final step that I have for him. Step 5. Consider a physical game. Zaid may not be the strongest camper left in the game, but I feel like there's enough potential for him to be a physical competitor under the right circumstances. Yes, he was one of the first people out of the dead weight competition, so that's not the best showing for him. But I remember back in episode 9 when he was one of the last two standing in the carousel challenge, so he must have some amount of endurance and strength. I think if he's not against someone like Logan or Anastasia, he at least stands a chance of winning a challenge, so he might want to consider leaning into his physicality if he makes it far. Do I think he's going to make it far? Well, I don't think it's impossible. But I do think he would need to start making moves in order to put himself above some other more deserving campers. Speaking of deserving, let's talk about Anastasia next. Now, I know that there's a vocal section of the community who really doesn't like Anastasia. But whether you love her or hate her, it's clear that Odd Nation Cartoons at least views her as someone who is integral to the storyline at this point in the season. I think it's very possible that Anastasia ends up as a finalist. But if she gets to that point, there are some steps that I think she should follow in order to help her get there. Step 1. Self-reflection. For as strong as Anastasia is, I don't think she's fully grasped the idea that her behavior has played some sort of role in the elimination of her closest allies. Going back to episode 9, when Linda flipped on the girls' alliance to take out Marisa, I can't help but feel like if Anastasia was a little more welcoming to Linda rejoining their alliance, Linda might not have flipped, and Marisa might not have been voted out. And past this, Anastasia hasn't exactly been the easiest person to talk to in the game, and I can't help but feel that it's played at least a little bit of a role in people not wanting to trust her. So going forward, I feel like Anastasia would benefit from some self-reflection and realizing that not everyone responds well to her personality. If she dials it back a bit, it might help her gain some more allies, which leads me to my next point. Step 2. Find a solid #1 ally. With Marisa officially out of the game, Anastasia needs someone who she can turn to and trust 100%. We know that she had a bond with Logan, but because of his reputation as a flipper and his lingering distrust of her, I doubt he would be a good ally for Anastasia. Meanwhile, Hannah has also expressed more of a desire to work with Anastasia, but she also has Amelie, and the argument could be made that Hannah is closer to Amelie than she is to Anastasia. If you ask me, I think Anastasia should try and make a final 2 deal with Zaid. They already built a connection earlier in the game from both of them losing their lovers, so I could see them rebuilding their bond based on that. If Anastasia can pull that off, that could give Anastasia the footing that she needs to keep herself safe. Which then leads into this next step. Step 3. Leverage group support. While Anastasia has turned people the wrong way in this game with her personality, it seems like she's garnered some support from most of the remaining campers after what Isabel did to her and Marisa in the most recent elimination trial. So if Anastasia really wanted to, it might be advantageous for her to emphasize how hurt she is by Isabel's move and really paint Isabel as a villain, hoping that the group would follow her lead and take out Isabel for her. Yes, I know this may not be the best from a story perspective since Isabel is bringing some drama to the show, but if we're looking at this from the perspective of what would be best for Anastasia, then leveraging the existing group support to take out her mortal enemy isn't a bad step to take. That being said, I do think that Anastasia should be careful with how she handles targeting Isabel, which leads me to my next point. Step 4. Time Isabel's elimination. I know that Anastasia probably wants Isabel out more than anything at this point. However, Anastasia really needs to be careful about when she decides to take out Isabel. Remember back in Isabel's section where I talked about how Isabel could leverage her feud with Anastasia as a way to get people to keep her in the game? Well, I think it works the same way with Anastasia. Once Isabel is out of the game, Anastasia's utility as an ally goes down, because now there's no telling who she's going to target next. So as dangerous as it might be, because of how publicly Anastasia and Isabel have feuded, there might be some benefit to letting Isabel stay for a trial or two, just so Anastasia can at least tell people that they would benefit from keeping her in the game because there's no doubt that she would target Isabel, thereby earning her a bit more longevity. After all, there's no better comfort in this game than knowing that one of your fellow campers is dedicated towards taking out someone who isn't you. Which then leads into my final point for Anastasia. Step 5. Keep people comfortable. By this point in the game, I doubt that anyone will ever be fully comfortable around Anastasia. So the best that Anastasia can do is keep people comfortable for as long as she can. She doesn't have to make them like her. She just has to keep their sights off of her until the moment that she decides to take them out. For example, Logan has made it clear that he doesn't trust Anastasia anymore. But considering Logan's flip-floppy nature, if Anastasia can keep him comfortable for an episode or two, it should give her enough time to establish a more trustworthy alliance, thereby allowing her to drop Logan without much consequence. Overall, Anastasia just needs to take it day by day, because she doesn't have nearly as much power in the game as she once had. And if she doesn't calm down and keep her head in the game, she could find herself voted out sooner rather than later. And I could say similar things about the next camper on this list, Hannah. While Hannah started this game as a sociable person with many allies, she lost many of them en route to the final 7, and it's really starting to take a toll on her. So if Hannah wants to win this game, she really needs to keep her eye on the prize and accomplish a few minor steps on the road to victory. And it all starts with step 1. Don't become jaded. It's clear that losing many of her friends and loved ones has really hurt Hannah, both in this game and in real life. And after her emotional outburst to Amelie in episode 19, it seems like Hannah is considering the possibility of just shutting people out entirely because she doesn't want to feel the pain of getting close to them, only to lose them shortly after. I really don't want Hannah to become jaded and start shutting people out. Not only would that hurt her ability to win, but it could also affect her ability to get through life. It's not going to be easy, and it's clear that she's going through a lot of mental and emotional pain right now. I just hope that she realizes that while it is painful to lose the people that you care about, she's not alone, and I doubt that she'll ever be alone. She still has Amelie that she can rely on, and she'll still have a chance to hang out with people like Diego and Benji once the season is over. There are people who care about her, and I hope she knows that. Speaking of these people, that leads into step 2. Trust Amelie. Even though Hannah and Amelie haven't exactly been on the same page recently, I still think that any damage that has happened to their bond can be reversed. I think Amelie genuinely wants to stick by Hannah, and if Hannah is looking for someone who will stick by her through thick and thin, Amelie is probably her best bet. If Amelie wasn't trustworthy, she wouldn't have given Hannah the money she needed to outbid Spencer for individual immunity in episode 18. And let's not forget that Amelie even cheered for Hannah after she won it. So even though things might be rough now, I still think that Hannah should shore things up with Amelie and ensure that they're still allies. And allies this late in the game are always a good thing. Which then leads into step 3. Leverage Anastasia connection. In episode 19, a big deal was made over Hannah's preference to stick with Anastasia and Marissa despite Amelie making a deal to stick with Jade and Isabel. And now that Marissa is gone from the game, Hannah could leverage her clear loyalty to Anastasia as a way to form a stronger bond with her. And with Anastasia not having any super solid allies left, I think Anastasia would be more than willing to team up with Hannah. This would give Hannah another ally that's willing to work with her, and is also a shield that Hannah can use to divert attention away from her. It's just an example of how she can use other campers to benefit her game, because it's just as important to consider how the other campers could affect your game. And this leads me into step 4. Beware of Zaid and Logan. At the moment, it's clear that the main feud in the final 7 is Anastasia versus Jade and Isabel. This leaves Hannah, Amelie, Zaid, and Logan in the middle. Being in the middle gives players a lot of power, but as it stands, Zaid and Logan have just as much voting power as Hannah and Amelie. So if Hannah wants to increase the amount of voting power that she and Amelie have, she needs to consider the possibility of taking out Zaid or Logan sooner rather than later. Especially if she's convinced that Jade and Isabel will always target Anastasia, and vice versa. In this case, it's all about Hannah recognizing her positioning in the game and how she can improve it. And that concept couldn't be more true with the last step for her. Step 5. Consider the threat of immunity. It's not something that I considered originally, but Hannah has technically won 2 consecutive individual immunity challenges. And yes, I know her first immunity was technically won through a bidding war, but it still showed the cast that Hannah has connections in the game who are willing to help her, which can be threatening. So, Hannah really needs to consider how the other campers view her from a physical standpoint. If she thinks that they don't see her as a threat, then she could maybe take a backseat in the challenges. But if she thinks that people are starting to see her as a potential physical threat, then she might need to lean into her physicality. Overall, I think she has a lot of flexibility in how she could play the rest of the game, and I just hope she makes the right choices in order to get herself closer to the end, because having her win after what she's gone through could be a satisfying ending. And to close this out, let's talk about our last returnee, Amelie. Most of the comments regarding Amelie that I've seen online are some variation of, "I love Amelie, but I don't think she's going to win." Now, I kind of agree with those statements, since I'm not fully convinced that Odd Nation Cartoons would make a previously eliminated camper come back to win yet, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to list the steps that I think Amelie should follow if she wants to win this season. Step 1. Reel in Hannah. As of the most recent episode, Hannah and Amelie haven't been on the best terms, with Hannah questioning Amelie's loyalty to her after she made a deal with Isabel and Jade without consulting Hannah first. So right now, Amelie needs to talk to Hannah and assure her that she's loyal to her and that she wants the two of them to go far in the game. And honestly, I don't think that would be a lie. Hannah and Amelie's development as a duo has been pretty nice to see, with Hannah originally helping Amelie and now Amelie helping Hannah. And while I doubt that both of them will make it to the finale, reeling in Hannah would at least give Amelie a better chance at getting there. That being said, Amelie needs to be ready for the scenario in which she can't reel Hannah back in. And that's step 2. Be prepared to jump ship. Even though Hannah is generally a good person, it's clear that she's going through a lot of emotional turmoil that is making it harder for her to think straight. Now, I can't blame Hannah for it, since it's clear that the turmoil comes from her past trauma of losing her loved ones. But at the same time, this game is cruel, and the game will wait for no one. If Hannah isn't able to get her mind back in the game and it causes her to act out and increase the target on her back, then Amelie may need to consider the possibility of jumping ship and letting Hannah go. It would be sad, but Amelie needs to position herself well in order to survive the endgame. And if cutting Hannah loose helps her do that, then it might be a necessary evil. That being said, there are other things that Amelie can do to improve her positioning. Such as step 3. Pin alliances against each other. As I've mentioned previously, it's clear that the major feud in the game is Jade and Isabel versus Anastasia and whoever she decides to team up with. With this clear division, Amelie would benefit from positioning herself in the middle of these alliances and ensure that these two alliances go after each other. This would buy her a couple more episodes of safety as long as these two alliances keep their eyes set on taking each other out. In general, the more that Amelie can stay out of the spotlight, the better it would probably be for her in the long run. That being said, I do want to add an asterisk to this, using the next step. Step 4. Don't remain too quiet. This step is a meta piece of advice, but I think it's worth considering. Even though I think Amelie should try and stay out of the spotlight, I don't want Amelie to completely fade into the background and do nothing. Because in these kinds of shows, if you're doing nothing, your chances of winning go down. So Amelie still needs to do things that impact the show and her overall chances of winning, while also standing back and letting the other campers take the brunt of the drama. Amelie should stand back far enough to not be at the forefront of all the fighting, but visible enough that people can justify her moves as proof of her being deserving of a spot in the finale. And if she can accomplish this and set herself on a path to the finale, then she can then focus on her final step. Step 5. Choose correct finalists. Making it to the finals is one thing, but making it to the finals against the ideal opponents is a whole other ballgame. I wouldn't consider Amelie to be physically weak, and I'm sure she didn't become a successful business owner by being dumb. That being said, I'm sure that Amelie would prefer it if she didn't have to face intense competition in the finale. And with the finale most likely going to be challenge-based, Amelie needs to consider who she stands the best chance at beating in the finale. If I had to pick two people who I think she could beat in a challenge, I'd say Hannah and Zaid, but as long as it's not Anastasia and Logan, I think Amelie would stand a decent chance at winning it all. I don't think I would mind Amelie winning, but of course, I'm sure there's someone out there who disagrees. And we could probably say the same thing about every remaining camper. I suppose we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. And that about does it for this video. What did you think of the video? Do you agree with my thoughts? Do you disagree? What do you think each camper needs to do in order to win? Either way, please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like the video, click subscribe if you really like the video, and for some ending words of wisdom. Next time you want to defend yourself after saying something wrong, don't tell someone to look at your backside. Just save us the trouble and don't ask. Thank you, and farewell.